Hello all, I hope you all are safe and doing well. I am doing this video today because I've been seeing a lot of online blogs and online videos which are talking about masturbation and self-stimulation, etc. and a lot of concepts about sexuality in a very wrong way. So I'm just doing this video as an educational video so that people who are going through these challenges, who are trying to find it difficult to understand how to think about this problem, what needs to be done. And there's a lot of questions in a lot of people's minds. So I felt it was high time, as a part of what I practice, that is sexual medicine. I do see and I do understand these things a little scientifically. Try and apply science. See what actually is happening. Understand the basics about your body so that you would know how to interpret these things. Talking about masturbation. Masturbation has been looked down upon. Masturbation has been told as abnormal, and then there are a lot of movements and cult following, etc., happening in and around masturbation. So there is this movement called NoFap challenge, which where people who want to take up this challenge will have to have zero masturbation at all for the next 3 months, or complete abstinence from sexual activity, where they feel that the nightfall is okay, and then there are certain criterias which they go through, right? So try to understand what's actually happening here. And then on the other side, there is this group which believes that whenever you're losing semen, you're actually going to experience some sexual weakness. This is going to predispose for maybe premature ejaculations or erectile dysfunctions and such. But they also experience not only these problems with sexual aspects, but they also experience some body related aspects. Some of them have reported that they feel fatigue and decreased energy levels, etc. But how much of this is actually physical? Have you ever questioned that? How much of this is actually because of you losing semen? And of course, a lot of people have different ways of understanding semen, again, because it's a biological fluid. Just like how tears and blood and sweat arises and generates from the body, semen also does. It has a specific purpose. Well, of course, one of the purposes is procreation, but it is something like a continuous activity which the reproductive system engages with. So whether you're using it or not, after a certain age, under the influence of hormones, you experience secondary sexual characteristics. That is, the testosterone spurt happens when you're adolescent and prepubescent age group. And post that, the testis starts to function differently. What was till the puberty age was just used for urination and defecation, etc. The reproductive organs functionality changes under the influence of certain hormones, because that is nature. That's part of growing up. That's part of continuation of the cycle. So that's how it happens. So under the influence of testosterone, you start producing sperms and semen, etc., which probably you have some use at that point in time, or may not have use, because there's a lot of social aspects that we have created right now, where we feel the right age of marrying is 18, and intercourse, etc., and sexual aspects, depending on a lot of factors, you may be sexually active or may not be sexually active. So people who don't have partners are known to indulge in sexual stimulation by themselves, which is masturbatory activity. So once you lose semen, you're going to lose it from the body, and after that, it's going to get reproduced. Usually it takes about 3 to 4 days. The hormones are there, influences are there, and then under the influence of these hormones, it is going to be reproduced again, and then you're going to continue the cycle. So I really don't understand how this is going to lead to other problems like decreased energy levels and increased fatigue and stuff like that, because that has no scientific basis from a reproductive system part of it, but has a scientific basis because this has been studied. This has scientific basis from a perspective of psychological disturbances, where your belief system has changed. When you started thinking differently, when you started feeling differently about it, and then you continue to focus on symptoms. So people who have this belief system to begin with get influenced by people talking about it. Maybe their friend said something, or maybe there's a group of guys in their locality who've been talking about these things, and then nobody has the right information to sexual education. Unfortunately, that's the flaw in the system. So we don't encourage sex education at all, and we don't have proper validated sex educators in school, or we are not allowed to talk about it to our elders, or there is a certain stigma which is still there and which prevents us from talking to people about it. So there you go. It's a perfect combination for a disaster. Firstly, you're not educated well in sex. You don't know about your body. And secondly, you are also getting influenced by someone who's like you, who's your peer, who knows probably as much as you do, or maybe less than what you do, or maybe knows the same thing in a very wrong way. But without questioning where the source is, you start believing some blogs, you start believing some people, you start believing because somebody made a video about it, and then you start focusing and then start understanding your body in a very different way and start believing that loss of semen can lead to a lot of problems. So hence, as an alternative to that, people have also started NoFap challenge, where you feel that, okay, let me retain the semen, which is the most important liquid which gives life. So this must be something pure, this must be something really important. So I'm not supposed to lose this from my body for unnecessary purposes, where you are decreasing the value of stimulation, decrease the value of sex, and then you feel, let me maintain celibacy and then reach this higher state of energy and stuff like that. And then you start practicing these things, and when you can't practice, because of course you've been used to a certain way of stimulation, it is going to take a lot for you to program your mind not to give you those thoughts. So what happens then is that your mind on one side is pushing you to get involved in sexual activity, because obviously one of the role, which is the biological role of testosterone, is to give you natural desires, natural libido, natural instinct. It's as biological as hunger, as biological as sleep. So the hormones are there, there is a need, the brain's areas are already programmed in a certain way, so the thoughts are going to come. And then once the thought comes, you have a different belief system right now. So what do you do with that? You get into a conflict, because one side of the brain tells you that you need to engage in sexual activity, either stimulation or masturbation, whereas your new belief system, because of these discussions and because of the way you feel, tells you that you should not be masturbating. So then the conflict starts, and then you're trying to abstain yourself from masturbation, or then you're not able to sometimes control that, and then you give in. So once you give in, immediately after you have masturbated, immediately after your orgasms, the second minute you start feeling bad, you start feeling disgusted with yourself, you feel helpless, you feel hopeless, then you start experiencing a lot of body symptoms. Ever wondered why these body symptoms are? Because you have activated a fear circuit, which is the sympathetic pathway or the flight and fight response, which has a lot of functions. So please remember that the body is connected to the brain, right? So the brain is the central nervous system, which is, there's a lot of neurons, there's a lot of nervous system, and there's a lot of chemicals which are comprising of the central nervous system. And then it flows down through the spine, and at each level of the spine, all the bodies are innervated, right? So anything happening on the brain has to flow down to the body. So whenever you create this conflict in your brain, you're pressurizing the brain, and you're always in a state of anxiety. So what actually happens is there are certain chemical reactions in certain areas of the brain which are known to be because of serotonin or dopamine and norepinephrine, and your attention concentration changes, the way you feel about yourself changes, and then this entire anxiety things will flow down to your system, and you could have dryness of mouth, you could have increased heart rate, you could have differences in your breathing patterns, your breathing may become shallow, you may experience some heaviness in your chest, you start fearing, you start panicking, you start observing these symptoms, start feeding on these symptoms. Then you may want to use the restroom, because obviously the nervous system has an impact on the intestine as well. So whenever the system is activated, you feel like emptying your bowels, you feel like emptying your bladder, and then you also may have weakness all over your body, and then sweating, tremors. You may feel like you're losing your balance, and you find it difficulty to concentrate, right? So these are some of the symptoms. You may not experience all the symptoms together, but you may experience varying amount of symptoms in varying severity and varying duration. But the point I'm trying to make is these constellation of symptoms constitute of a fear response because of your belief. You created this, and after that the conflict developed, and you pressurized your brain, caused some changes, then you're experiencing these body symptoms. But obviously, from a common man perspective, you would not know that these are related to the central nervous system. So you obviously feel, what was the activity I just did? I masturbated. So probably all these symptoms are because I masturbated, and because semen, which is the most important protein in my body, which takes about 8 drops of blood to form, which by the way is completely unscientific. Please do not believe these things. There are a lot of culture bound syndromes, especially in Southeast Asian regions, especially in Indian men. We have a lot of culture bound syndrome where some men believe that the semen takes about 8 drops of blood. That is, 1 drop of semen requires 8 drops of blood. So they have this thinking, which is not true, which definitely is not very scientific to think of it in that manner at all. But because of their belief system, they continue to thrive on that belief, right? So whatever you believe, that you are, right? I think, therefore I am. So you start believing that, you start acknowledging that, and you start working on that principle in a tubular vision way. And then you start experiencing these body symptoms immediately after masturbation, but you don't make the connection of it could be a conflict, it could be my thinking, and I could be activating this nervous system, which is basically a fear response. And what I'm having is a sense of panic, is a sense of anxiety, but faultily apply this to the activity that resulted in this experience, which is the masturbation. So it gets wrongly tagged, and twice or thrice you experience the same symptoms again, then you're a constant state of fear, constant state of helplessness. You beat yourself up, you're very critical about yourself, you're very judgmental, and then you start categorizing a very normal biological response because of our internal hormones, because of nature, right? So we are categorizing these things as wrong, and then we're trying to go against it. Well, that's the problem, right? So whenever we go against nature, it is going to have its repercussions. I'm not saying that masturbation is all good. Of course, just like everything else, we need to have a moderation, right? But I'm just trying to say that we should not put masturbation in a place where it is criminalized. We need to understand we have to normalize these things. We need to understand that this can be an exploratory part of growing up, right? So when you start understanding that this is a very explorative part, so you start exploring your body in a different way, and then when you don't have a partner, it's something that you do. As long as you are not addicted on it, or you're not dependent on it, you're not using it for things other than sexual stimulation, and if you're doing it very frequently, like about 2-3 times in a day, 4 times in a day, and are occupied in probably experiencing masturbation, then getting over from the effects of it, again experiencing masturbation, etc. So this cycle, if you're not in this cycle, if you're not dependent, if you're not addicted, but you're using masturbation very healthily, maybe not even as a pattern, maybe something like once in a while, etc., then I don't see any reason why you should find it, or find a fault with it, or why you should be disgusted with yourself. So please try and understand these symptoms and these the brain and the body responses, and how faultily, because of a wrong belief system, we are trying to put something in our minds, and then we're getting tensed about it. So of course, if at all you have an issue with masturbation, you want to reduce your frequency, there are certain tips which can help you. Probably you should form a schedule, you should start working out, you should start exercising. Yoga is helpful only in relaxation, but not to be considered where you need to consciously relax when you're developing a conflict. So please go down to the depths of it. Please understand where you need to correct these problems. Is it my belief? Is it I'm wrongly indicating something else? So start challenging your thoughts, because I think we should apply science, and really an evidence-based approach is really important in these cases, because there's a lot of myths around. I don't want young men to fall a prey to these things and then continuously be in a state of anxiety and worsening, because I've had a lot of people coming to me, a lot of people asking questions. Do you think I have developed sexual weakness? Do you think I will be ever able to come out of it? Do you think I will be able to satisfy my partner? Should I get married or not? I have deferred my marriage for about 2 years because I'm in this constant loop, and I feel masturbation has destroyed my life. So this is the kind of impact it can have on somebody's minds to a various extent. I'm not saying everybody is in this zone, but I'm just trying to educate people so that you understand what is normal, what is abnormal, how to normalize things, and then probably lead a very healthy life after understanding these things about your body. And I hope this was really helpful to bust some myths about masturbation, about the culture bound syndrome called as the DART syndrome, about the importance of testosterone and how natural libido is and how it happens, etc., and how you are supposed to redirect your mind, and how to understand this wrongful indication of masturbatory problems and fatigue and brain fog syndrome, etc. So please don't be anxious. Normalize things with yourself. Learn to understand your body in a much better way. Lead a healthy lifestyle, exercises, workouts, hobbies, speaking to somebody you trust, enjoying yourself, appreciating yourself, and please stop devaluing yourself and putting yourself down or criticizing yourself. Don't do that. Whenever there's a need, please reach out to someone who's professional, who's trained on these areas to guide you properly, instead of believing some online blogs or online videos where you're not even sure about the sources. So I hope all of you have understood these things, or probably it has helped you in some point in ways. If at all there is any questions, you can please reach out to me, or you can reach out to somebody who's a professional who's close to you. Please remember, always apply science, because evidence-based medicine is the way to go ahead. Thank you. You have a good day.